The difference between a champion and everyone else isn't physical talents or abilities. It's not some innate gift that separates the elite from the rest. No, the real difference, the game-changing factor, is in the mind. Champions don't just act like champions, they think like champions. So today I'm going to share with you the secrets to cultivating a champion's mindset. Brace yourselves, because this isn't just motivational fluff. We're going to do some serious work reprogramming the way you think. Are you ready to learn how champions think? Then let's get started. The first step is to crush the victim mindset. You know what I'm talking about, that little voice in your head that whines, it's not fair, I don't have what it takes. The deck is stacked against me. That's the victim talking, and let me tell you, the victim never wins. Champions take full responsibility for their circumstances and outcomes. No matter what gets thrown their way, they respond with, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. When something goes wrong, victims make excuses, but champions make progress. They don't complain about how unfair the teacher is. They study harder. They don't gripe about the bad break or missed call. They simply outwork and outcompete everyone else. There will always be setbacks, disappointments, and difficulties. That's life. But in the face of adversity, champions don't get bitter, they get better. The second vital component of a champion's mindset is an unwavering obsession with self-mastery. Champions are relentless learners and workers, constantly striving to improve their crafts. While others are watching TV, champions are studying film. While others are partying, champions are practicing. When you live for your purpose with laser-focused intensity, you will blow past those who view their passions as hobbies. Self-mastery extends far beyond just building skills, though. Champions master their emotions by developing unshakable poise under pressure. They master their self-talk by filling their minds with empowering truths rather than destructive lies. They master their mindset by viewing events objectively while cultivating an unstoppable belief in themselves. And they master their disciplines through impeccable habits and routines. No matter how much natural talent you're blessed with, if you don't work as hard as the next person, they will surpass you eventually. Michael Jordan understood this. For every being born a poor black kid in a poor black neighborhood challenge, he responded by outworking and outtraining everyone around him until he became the greatest of all time. The third key element of championship thinking is the ability to reframe any situation to your advantage. While others only see the problems, champions look for the opportunities hidden within them. When facing a setback, they don't get stuck in fear, anger, or self-pity. Instead, they immediately start asking inspired questions like, what can I learn from this? And how can I turn this situation around? Remember the story of Milton Hershey? As a young man, he was fired from a humble job at a conventional baking company. Most people would have been devastated and given up on their dreams. But Hershey simply took it as a sign that the universe had bigger plans for him. Within a decade, he had mastered the chocolate-making process and built his confectionery empire. The greatest champions don't just put a positive spin on their circumstances. They genuinely believe that every adversity carries the seeds of equal or greater benefit. Hershey saw his firing not as devastation, but as an impetus to pursue his grander vision. When you get fired or fail at something major, you have a clear choice. Are you going to get bitter or get better? Are you going to let this experience break you or help you break through to the next level? Champions always choose the latter. The fourth essential quality of championship thinking is a hunger that can never be satiated. Champions are always asking themselves, how can I improve? What's next? No sooner have they achieved one goal than their sights are set on an even bigger target. In the world of champions, there is no finish line because they are in it for the love of the pursuit itself. Joe DiMaggio was one of the most celebrated baseball players of all time. After getting his number retired by the Yankees, most people would have been thrilled to bask in such glory. But DiMaggio always wanted more out of himself. When asked why he played so hard all the time, he simply responded, because there might have been somebody out there who could have done it better. That hunger to perfect your craft and become the best version of you possible, that is what separates champions from everyone else. Thousands of athletes are content to be journeyman professionals collecting a paycheck. But only the ones with a ferocious appetite for greatness go on to become legends. The fifth essential component of a champion's mindset is the ability to stay resolved in the face of short-term setbacks or pain. Throughout any worthy pursuit, you will inevitably face times of immense difficulty, exhaustion, or frustration. This is when most people quit or rationalize taking their foot off the gas. But the greatest of champions have a remarkable capacity to suffer in the short term because they never lose sight of the long game. Some of the most elite endurance athletes in the world utilize a simple mental technique of breaking down their races into bite-sized chunks. A marathon is just 26 individual 1-mile runs. A 100-mile race is just 100 individual miles that you put together. Whenever the pain of fatigue starts to set in, they refuse to worry about the 99 remaining miles. They simply focus on conquering the mile they're on. One step at a time, that's how champions operate. It's a mindset of grit and tenacity, so perfectly embodied by Abraham Lincoln. While failing at multiple business ventures, enduring a brutal depression, and seeing his dreams of becoming president crushed time and again, Lincoln never gave up on his vision for himself and the nation he loved. He stayed absolutely committed through years of turmoil until he finally claimed the ultimate victory. No matter how unbelievably tough things get on the path to your dreams, you must stay resolved and focused on the present moment. Champions never get caught up in the whole journey. They only concentrate on the step in front of them right now. Do that, and you will eventually grind your lofty ambition into reality. The sixth characteristic of championship thinking is the refusal to seek external validation. Champions don't obsess over what others think of them or get derailed by criticism or setbacks. They compete for the sake of their own pure mastery and growth, not for anyone else's approval. Jim Carrey is a perfect example of this. After finding enormous success as an A-list comedic actor, many people counseled him not to take on serious dramatic roles. They warned that he would bomb and the public wouldn't accept his new direction. But Carrey simply had to follow his inner calling. So he took on major dramatic parts, despite the naysayers. And of course, he succeeded masterfully. The greatest achievers in history, like Da Vinci, Edison, like J. Rowling, and Jobs, simply did not worry about how the world judged or discouraged them. They maintained an unwavering sense of self-confidence rooted in knowing exactly who they were and what they had been called to contribute. Champions know that opinions are ultimately meaningless. It's the results and impact you create that really matter. So they tune out the noise and stay locked in on manifesting their vision into reality. They absolutely refuse to hand their power and self-worth over to any external source. The seventh aspect of a champion's mindset is the ability to rise above petty distractions and focus singularly on what's important. In this age of information overload and shiny objects, most people have the attention spans of squirrels. Their minds are constantly fractured among social media, entertainment, and trivial pursuits. But you'll never catch champions wasting their most precious currency on such distractions. Champions are inevitably masters of their priorities, time and energy management. They simplify, plan, and fiercely protect their focus so they can consistently put in the hard work necessary to succeed. While others are binging Netflix and falling down social media rabbit holes, champions are perfecting their crafts, studying their fields, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. When Jonathan Bromwell was first starting out as a stockbroker in London, his colleagues spent most evenings partying and gallivanting about. But Bromwell knew that to achieve his dreams of becoming a self-made millionaire, he would have to make some serious sacrifices. So he ruthlessly optimized his nights and weekends for learning about financial markets while his peers frittered away their time. And of course, that unbridled focus and diligence eventually paid off in spades. The ability to tune out the noise and trivial many is what allows champions to go all in on maximizing their potential. While the mediocre masses are distracted, disorganized, and diluting their efforts, champions are busy optimizing every fiber of their being into their grand visions. The eighth and final component of a champion's mentality is simply to never, ever, ever quit. What often separates true champions from those with just brilliant flashes of potential is an inner sense of grit, persistence, and stubbornness in the face of adversity. No one exemplifies this kind of relentless refusal to quit than Colonel Harlan Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Despite his first two restaurant failures and being brutally broke at age 65, Sanders spent over 2 years crisscrossing the country and facing over 1,000 rejections before he got his first franchisee to buy into his fried chicken concept. What if he had given up after being laughed out of the first few meetings? What if he had resigned himself to being just another financially destitute senior citizen instead of boldly chasing his dreams with reckless abandon? Thank goodness this man had an inner furnace of tenacity and belief in himself that could not be extinguished no matter how many times life tried to knock him down. We've all heard stories like this of men and women who clawed towards their destinies inch by inch, no matter what hell they had to claw through. That kind of pig-headed perseverance ultimately cannot be deterred. When you combine that level of commitment with the other mental attributes we discussed earlier, you become an unstoppable juggernaut of achievement. My friends, I implore you to scrutinize yourself ruthlessly. Do you see these qualities in how you operate, or do you still harbor destructive habits and paradigms more resemblant of those who live lives of mediocrity and resignation? It's only by gazing into that brutally honest mirror that each of us can see where we need to step up our mental games. It would be nice if success and fulfillment came easily, but anything great in this world is uphill all the way. The path of the champion is arduous, fraught with constant battles and setbacks, and requiring you to claw your way to the top over an extended period. It takes a particular brand of mental fortitude and programming to thrive under such intense circumstances rather than wither. If you're serious about becoming a champion in any field, from business to sports to relationships to art to philanthropy, then you must decide today to overhaul your mindset. Out with the doubts, fears, limiting beliefs, excuses, short-sightedness, and lack of commitment that have held you hostage. In their place, install the self-confidence, opportunity focus, hunger, resilience, self-mastery, integrity, and bulldog tenacity that allow champions to flower in the face of adversity. It takes work, it takes challenging yourself, and it ultimately takes a momentous decision about the caliber of human you want to become. So what will it be? Are you ready to start thinking like a champion and put in the work to become one? Or will you allow the gravity of mediocrity to keep you grounded far beneath your capacity? It's the decision that separates those who live their dreams from those who remain forever aspiring to. The path is rugged, but the view is spectacular. And even if you choose to become a champion, you'll reap that harvest of pride, excellence, and fulfillment every single day for the rest of your life. There is simply no greater way to live. Now answer the call that stirs in your soul. What have you been called to master in this life? To build? To revolutionize? To create? To achieve? To aspire? To contribute? Let that quest ignite an inferno of inspired obsession. Let it burn away the impurities and trivialities that have diluted you. Let it forge you into an unstoppable mind, one consumed with hunger, resilience, and that ferocious champion's mentality. The choice is yours. But for those who dare to shatter the boundaries of what's been lazily accepted, think like a champion, operate like a champion, embrace your destiny like a champion, and this world will forever be revolutionized merely by your decided existence within it. The hour is yours, my friends. Now go operate like the champion you were born to become. Perhaps you're still not fully convinced that you have what it takes to develop a genuine champion's mindset. Maybe you're being held back by doubts, fears, or limiting beliefs about your own abilities. If that's the case, I have an important truth to share with you. The greatest champions throughout history were not born genetically superior or blessed with some mystical advantage. They became champions through the ways they harnessed the power of their minds. You see, your mindset is the one thing in this world that you have complete control over. Your circumstances, upbringing, setbacks, none of those external factors have to define your ultimate trajectory if you refuse to give them that power. When you take full ownership over your internal world, you begin operating from a place of unwavering self-determination. The legendary boxer Muhammad Ali exemplified this mindset mastery. At a time when racism and oppression constantly tried to dehumanize him, Ali boldly declared, "I am the greatest," with a confidence and self-belief that was revolutionary. That kind of inner defiance in the face of societal conditioning is what allows champions to auto-motivate themselves to achieve the seemingly impossible. In the same vein, look at the story of Oprah Winfrey. Born into generational poverty and a childhood marred by abuse, Oprah could have easily allowed herself to stay trapped in a toxic mindset of victimhood and scarcity. But instead, she made the conscious decision to cultivate a mindset of resilience, optimism, and abundance that propelled her to become a billionaire and one of the most influential humans on the planet. My friends, do you realize how powerful and liberating it is to know that you get to choose your mindset? That no matter what happened to you or what limiting circumstances surround you, you and you alone get to decide the beliefs that will shape your destiny. When you fully internalize and harness that ability, it's like being handed the master key to accomplishing anything you can conceive. One of the core truths I have observed from studying champions across every domain is that they adamantly refuse to make excuses or see themselves as victims. Instead, they operate from an empowered mindset of full responsibility and belief in their own capabilities. Think about Colonel Harlan Sanders, who I mentioned earlier. He could have easily slipped into a scarcity mindset and talked himself out of pursuing his fried chicken venture in his mid-60s. Just imagine all the perfectly logical excuses he could have made. I'm too old to start over at my age. It's a crazy idea. No one will invest in an old man's chicken obsession. How am I going to afford all the travel costs and rejections? There are way too many obstacles. I should just take the easy path. But Sanders refused to indulge those excuses or limit himself with a victim mindset. His only focus was on making his inspired vision a reality at all costs. So he simply tuned out anyone who tried to project fears and doubts and persisted with a mindset of tenacious conviction until he became a global business icon. That mindset cultivation that allows champions to rise above circumstances is paramount. Because when you develop that skill, you stop living solely based on the conditions of your life and start creating your life proactively through your habits and beliefs. Walter Sutton was an African-American born in rural Mississippi at the turn of the 1900s. Now, his life circumstances were about as limited as you could imagine: grinding poverty, systematic oppression, lack of access to education or resources. But rather than accept those restraints, Sutton made the conscious decision to cultivate an empowering mindset of possibility. In his own words, at the age of 10, decided that if I couldn't have things like other boys, I would just be different altogether than other boys. With that defiant spirit, Sutton broke through every obstacle society placed on him. By age 25, he had bought his first real estate property and started acquiring assets hand over fist. In his later decades, he branched into constructing apartment buildings and commercial real estate projects until he passed away as one of the wealthiest self-made black entrepreneurs of his era. The decision to author his own reality and possibilities rather than accept the limiting conditioning of his childhood circumstances, that was the Genesis mindset choice that set Walter Sutton on his path to becoming a true champion against all odds. And you can make that same decision for yourself right here today. If there were ever human proof that a powerful mindset can override any external adversity, it's the incredible story of Dr. Viktor Frankl. As a Jewish psychiatrist during World War II, Frankl endured over 3 years of unfathomable torture, malnutrition, dehumanization, and tragedy in Nazi death camps like Auschwitz, an experience so horrific that it crushed the mental and physical fortitude of most people unlucky enough to suffer it. Yet Frankl emerged from that living hell more resilient, grateful and purpose-driven than ever before. How? By clinging to an empowering mindset that helped him transcend circumstance. In his own beautiful words, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." Even while being stripped of every basic human dignity, Frankl realized that the Nazis could never take away his ability to cultivate an elevated mindset. A mindset rooted in perseverance, love, personal accountability, and service to others that quite literally allowed him to endure through all depths of horror. In our darkest hours, he reminds us that we always have a choice in how we decide to respond. I share these stories because if these remarkable souls could develop championship caliber mindsets in the face of such immense adversity, then there is no circumstance, upbringing, or setback that any of us can reasonably use as an excuse not to follow suit. The only thing standing between you and developing a champion's mind is your willingness to own that ability fully, to start programming your deepest beliefs with the empowering self-talk and paradigms you need to take full accountability for authoring your own ultimate success. In that brave new mental frontier, you will no longer be a hostage to doubts or limitations. You decide how to filter every experience through the lens of optimism, resilience, possibility, and growth. You dictate the beliefs that will drive your behaviors and habits in pursuit of your greatest visions. You alone get to choose whether you operate with a victim mindset or an owner's mindset, whether your self-talk is toxic or nurturing, whether you focus on roadblocks or remain resourceful, whether you succumb to fears or charge forward through them. When you develop this ability to be the intentional programmer of your mindset, you begin facing every adversity, failure, and obstacle from a posture of power. From there, you are no longer an unwitting product of circumstance, but rather the conscious architect of fulfilling your biggest ambitions. Does it take awareness, courage, and daily practice to cultivate that championship level mindset mastery? Absolutely. But you were born with the innate ability to make that choice for yourself. You simply need to harness it with the same ferocity that world-class performers apply their talents. So I'll leave you with this final push, my friends. What will you decide in this very moment? Will you make the commitment to eradicate your excuses and start intentionally programming yourself with the mindset of a champion from this day forward? Or will you remain among the masses, stuck in reactionary mindsets of scarcity and victimhood, letting outer circumstances remain the governor on what's possible rather than tapping into your inner dominion over your beliefs and capabilities? That fateful decision cultivates whether you will spend your remaining days on this planet resigning yourself to tepid dreams or rising up to become the full force of nature you were put on this earth to be. The choice is yours, and yours alone. But for those who dare to break free of every limiting condition and finally start thinking like a champion, this is your official invitation to prepare for liftoff. As we dive deeper into cultivating a true champion's mindset, I want to address one of the most insidious mental traps that can sabotage even the most talented or capable individuals: the fear of failure. You see, a scarcity mindset will always try to keep you tiny and playing it safe to avoid potential embarrassment or loss. But champions understand that the ability to properly reframe failure is perhaps the most vital skill on the path to greatness. The most successful people in any field, from business titans to legendary athletes, have all experienced devastating defeats and setbacks along their journeys. But rather than let those failures cripple their psyches or deter them from their pursuits, champions choose to recontextualize every apparent failure as critical feedback loops, accelerating their growth. Take a look at someone like Michael Jordan. Yes, he's arguably the greatest basketball player of all time after winning 6 championships and becoming a global cultural icon. But do you know that he was actually cut from his high school varsity basketball team as a sophomore? Can you imagine how crushed and hopeless a young Michael could have felt in that moment if he had a scarcity mindset? Most people would have taken that traumatic experience as confirmation that they simply didn't have what it takes and resigned themselves to much smaller dreams. But not Michael Jordan. Rather than be defined by that failure, he made the conscious choice to reframe it as a humbling source of motivation to work twice as hard developing his skills until he couldn't be denied. Fast forward just a few years later, and that resilient mindset saw him blossom into a phenom at the University of North Carolina before taking the NBA by storm. Jordan's ability to use that early failure as fuel for his hunger and self-belief laid the foundation for his mindset dominance throughout his professional career. No matter what adversity he faced, from tough playoff losses to personal scandals, he perpetually responded by using the experiences to elevate his mental toughness, perseverance, and mastery even further. That refusal to allow any setback to derail his championship momentum provides a powerful case study for all of us. To put it simply, failures are not just inevitable on the path to greatness, they're necessary. Because it's those disappointing moments and gut punches that ultimately fortify the grit, resilience, and hunger within you to go transcendent. So you must get psychologically divorced from the idea of failure being intrinsically bad or something to fear. In the realm of champions, there is no such thing as failure. There is only feedback accelerating your mastery. Every small failure simply becomes your portal to identifying your blind spots, upgrading your strategies, and coming back twice as prepared to dominate. Defeat is never a condemnation of your capabilities. It's the fire that forges them into an unstoppable force over time. Of course, this level of psychological mastery is much easier said than done in the face of very real mistakes, losses, and setbacks that can rock you emotionally and materially, which is why you must proactively develop coping practices that keep you anchored in an empowered possibility mindset, rather than drowning in the depths of catastrophic thinking. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools I've found for cultivating a champion's mentality around failure is to get ruthlessly clear on the lessons and insights each particular failure has to offer you. Rather than moping or sulking over losses, you want to move into a space of sober self-reflection, where you dispassionately analyze exactly what went wrong and what adjustments you need to make going forward. Then channel that feedback into upgrading your approach, level of commitment, skills, or strategies before immediately putting it into determined practice. Because the greatest entrepreneurs, creators, and athletes all understand that the true failure is only in failing to learn, adapt, and keep evolving in the face of setbacks. Once you extract the lesson, you get to flush away the failure and alchemize it into motivation for refinement. Another vital psychological reset of champions in the face of disappointment is to simply zoom out and maintain perspective. When you're deep in the emotional trenches of a blowout loss or project failure, it can be so easy to spiral into that scarcity mindset of catastrophizing and feeling utterly hopeless. But as hard as it may seem in the heat of the moment, you must find a way to tap into your more transcendent self that understands one setback is never the end unless you let it become that. Because from that higher vantage point, you can ask yourself bigger and better questions around the failure. Questions that reframe it as part of a broader narrative of growth, grit building, and refinement in service of your highest calling. For the legendary artist Vincent van Gogh, that meant reflecting on every rejection of his priceless artwork as necessary humbling steps on the path to his true artistic mastery that would inspire generations to come. For Richard Branson, that meant reframing the loss of his first company and nearly going bankrupt as formative experiences that allowed him to build greater mental fortitude and resourcefulness that would shape every other business he created over the coming decades. No matter how crushing the blow champions view, those valleys as profound opportunities to steel themselves for eventual ascent to even greater heights of impact and fulfillment. And when all else fails, there's nothing more powerful than resetting your mindset by connecting back to your deepest sense of purpose, values, and faith. The truly great ones understand that while negative events and failures are inevitable, they never have to become internalized as a reflection of their own self-worth or value. Their identity is rooted in a deeper wellspring of meaning that failure simply cannot threaten. Because at the end of the day, what impact does any loss or frustration truly have on your core essence or ultimate mission on this earth? For the likes of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., or the Wright brothers, their monumental causes were always much bigger than any individual setback, no matter how excruciating. They consistently tapped into that same bottomless reserve of human spirit and self-belief that allowed them to keep persisting through all forms of opposition, hatred, or dehumanization in service of manifesting their grandest legacies. In the grand scheme of the dent you were put on this earth to make, no solitary failure can ever truly derail you unless you surrender your mind to the scarcity mindset and limiting beliefs it tries to peddle. And by cultivating an identity rooted in your highest values and callings, you develop an unwavering sense of self that failure simply cannot rattle. So remember, my friends, failure is not something to be feared, but embraced as part of your hero's journey that will continually be asking more and more of you to rise up. Do not run from challenges or heartbreaks, but charge straight through them with a championship mindset that knows no loss can ever linger longer than the lesson it has to offer you. From missed opportunities to bottomless setbacks, any failure is simply stepping stone towards your evolution as an unstoppable force in whatever arena you choose to dominate. The only way to truly fail is to buy into the mindset of the masses that sees defeat as condemnation, rather than the championship mindset that alchemizes every disappointment into empowering feedback in service of growth. Those who think and respond like champions do not break when facing adversity. They bend so they can become more resilient and fortified to keep moving towards their highest possibilities. They become Spartans, calloused and battle-hardened by the inevitable fires every hero must walk through to etch their legacies. So when the heat comes, you must choose to armor up in certainty, personal accountability, and commitment to your utmost ideals. You must dig even deeper into your reservoir of hunger, resourceful perseverance, and unshakable faith in your ability to ultimately create the impact and legacy you were destined for. That is how all of the greatest champions responded to their most defining tests and inflection points. And if your convictions run deep enough, you too shall pass through every apparent fire of failure, eventually emerging in astounding renewal and glory like the mythological phoenix rising.